Please note that the opinions and views expressed in the episode are of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UCSC Resource Centers. Hello, and welcome to Solidari-Tea, the Resource Centers podcast at UCSC. The purpose of Solidari-Tea is to uplift the voices and actions of students who work at the Resource Centers or with student organizations. I'm Mango, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm an intern with the ERC. Today we have Donnie Veal from the Underground Scholars. Donnie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Donnie. I use he, him pronouns. I am a transfer student from Cabrillo College, and I'm finishing up my senior year here at UCSC. My major is sociology, and I work for the Underground Scholars program at the Stars Lounge as the outreach coordinator.
I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what the Underground Scholars is, what they do.
So the Underground Scholars is a program that caters to system-impacted students or children of system-impacted people. And that system can be immigration, any of the systems that, are at large that have impacts on us. So we cater to those students that have been system impacted, just helping them navigating their way, through this space.
I think that's a really great definition for it. I remember when I first encountered Underground Scholars, I didn't realize how far it extended to, people who are just as impacted, and also their family members and loved ones. That was really cool to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be a person that's directly impacted. If you have a family member that was close to you in their absence, or they were impacted by the system and it had an impact on you, those people are welcomed into our community and our space as well.
That's lovely. I also wanted to ask more about your role. So you said you're the outreach specialist, right? Sure. What does that entail?
So I go to different community colleges in the area, trying to make contact with system impacted people. And we're trying to reverse that school to prison pipeline, and we're trying to build a prison to school pathway. We changed the wording from pipeline to pathway because pipeline seems to be so solid, just so straight, like you're only going in one direction, where pathways, there's many different pathways to get to the destination. So we changed the terminology, the pipeline terminology, when we're coming out of prison, going into school, to say pathway, so that we can have numerous different ways to achieve the goals in which we're trying to achieve.
That's cool. I haven't heard of that, that shift in language. Is that something that's happening throughout every campus, or is it this one?
Yeah, I know here on UCSC, that's something that's some terminology that we're starting to change in our flyers and our pages online and stuff like that. We're trying to change that pipeline to say pathway. You know what I mean? Just more user-friendly language and stuff that we're trying to use.
Honestly, I feel that gives people an opportunity to feel like I have a choice in my destiny, whereas pipeline is kind of I'm just being impacted. I have no control.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the inspiration for us wanting to change the language in that.
How did you get connected to Underground Scholars?
I got connected to Underground Scholars because I am a system impacted student. I served 23 years in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I was released October 11th, 2019. And I was with an emoji. Well, I can't really say what the program was when I was in Cabrillo because everything was just so new to me and it was just such a blur. But I want to say that I was in Emoji in the EOP program and stuff like that. And when I applied for my tap to tag into the UC system, somebody reached out to me about catering to inmates that have been, or not inmates, excuse me, people that have been system impacted. And, they opened up my eyes to a community that, kind of fits well with, me coming back to school. I'm older, I'm 50 years old. And again, system impacted. And a lot of people don't understand that. There's still a lot of negative stigma that is attached to people that have felonies or that have been convicted of felonies. And so I understood that stigma. I impacted by it daily. So to have a space that's, inclusive, and doesn't shy away from people that have been system impacted was definitely a community that I felt that would help me thrive here at UCSC.
Right. So I know you had mentioned earlier that like the program that you were part of in Cabrillo College, they were also the ones who had connected you to Joshua, right, as the underground scholars.
Yes.
So like they watch out for you and things like that as
Well, yeah, it was kind of cool the way things happened. I was pretty. When I first came to UCSC can be a little overwhelming, especially when you come from a community college. In my community college, it was a little smaller, so therefore it was a little more intimate. And the space was, it was real comfortable in the sense like you felt like, you had, some help that was just right there. Whereas, UCSC, I compare UCSC to getting you ready for real life. It doesn't just provide the things to you openly. You kind of like have to go out there and seek your resources, and if you don't know where to find them or whatever, it can be a little overwhelming and daunting at times. And so, thankfully, again, underground scholars gave me that space to where I can kind of like, ease into it and, you know what I mean? Kind of like, find my way without being so stressed about, trying to figure it out.
Honestly, I feel like it looks really beautiful, right? Like the campus with the trees and the nature, and like it will be a very easy transition, right? And that warmth and community will be easy to find. But then you get here and it's like everything's so decentralized that finding a place where you can feel some sense of belonging or community, like it can be really difficult. So I can imagine that was really nice to like, even though you didn't really know where to go, having a place to like build those relationships and like find your space. That must have been really cool.
Yeah, and especially again, I'm 50 years old. I look like a professor. Like I don't look like an average student. And then those average students that I do encounter sometimes, they don't know how to approach me. They don't know how to interact. I've experienced some ageism since I've been here, and meaning that people don't like to include me in all the reindeer games, so to speak. It's not all inclusive. Been kicked out of a Discord, and stuff like that, just, because I didn't fit. And so, not that I'm going to allow that to deter me from, achieving my goal here at UCSC. But it would just be nice to, be inclusive. I want the same networking opportunities that, that other people in their 20s have, to be excluded sometimes because of my age or, things. It could be a little discouraging. But, Undergrounds was, a community that allowed me to, relax and again, build those networks, allow people to get to know me a little bit and hear who I am. And then once they hear my story a little bit, that's when they start to be more open, more receptive and, and things like that. But initially, a lot of people don't know how to handle me. They ask me if I'm staff. I even have staff asking me if I'm staff. Like, are you a student? Do you go here? Those are some things that, I don't know if they're supposed to be that way. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be, but, I know I have a bigger fish to fry, which is, graduating from UCSC. And, as an older person, we get a little bit stubborn, you know what I mean? And so therefore, I'm not going to let anybody, anything deter me from reaching that goal. But it would just be nice to have the same opportunities that everybody else has sometimes, But, Underground gives me my safe space, and I'm thankful for that.
I'm 27 as a transfer student, and so that's also not a typical age. So it's really nice to hear, like, I know we have our age difference too, but I feel very like it's nice to know that other people experience that too. Because I'm 27 and I experienced those like that kind of like hesitancy of like, should I be hanging out or like connecting with these people or trying to work with these people? Like, there's definitely like some separation, but I think it can be really moving when you can make those connections with people and build different things together.
Absolutely.
So that's so cool. I did want to take it back a bit and touch on your past. I know you've talked a bit right now about like your transition on like how it's been coming into UCSC. I did want to ask a bit about, so prior to beginning at community college, you were taking classes while you were incarcerated, right?
Yes.
What did that look like?
It wasn't till late in my prison career. I got older. my family has been big on education, but it wasn't something that I felt like I could focus on and achieve in prison just because of all the madness and stuff going on around me. But I got a little older. I started to pull back away from my homies and some of my old ways. Like I used to, be in the gangs and gang banging and gang member and functioning and politics and all those things. But when I started seeing that things weren't as it was really for nothing, like, putting in all the work or, representing and all that, I started to realize that, what am I going to get at the end of this? What's the payout going to be? How is this going to benefit me? And once I realized that, there weren't any real, benefits that would sustain me for the rest of my life, my thought process started to change. I started, thinking about taking college courses. I wound up taking a public speaking course from Hartnell, that Hartnell was sending professors into Salinas Valley State Prison. I took a public speaking class, and in that public speaking class, they wanted us to research a topic, and the topic that I decided to research was recidivism. I learned that the one thing that has a positive, first of all, recidivism is when they let a person out of prison, when a person comes back to prison, that's called recidivating or recidivism. So the one thing that has a positive impact on the recidivism rate has proven to be education. And so with me knowing that one day I would get out of prison, I wanted to know as much as I could about staying out of prison. And then once I learned that, education has a positive impact on the recidivism rate, I just dove all the way in as much as I could into college. I started taking as many college courses as I possibly could because I felt like, hey, I'm not doing anything, better with my life. The only problem is that, and I didn't realize how big the system impacts us as, impacts people and how much, they have an impact on, let's just say, our criminal justice institution. So in prison, there's a lot of money that's been taken out of education, out of vocations and all of those things. And when California turned to more punitive damages or more locking people up, they started getting the money for extra officers and overtime and all that stuff. They pull that from all the vocations, all the education and all those things. So getting your education in prison is pretty hard. You would think that if there was something that was proven to help people and change the outlook of, criminal justice and make a positive impact, you would think that, the system would invest more money into trying to educate people and have a positive impact on the recidivism rate. And, once I started to realize, wait a minute, there's no money in education. I'm trying to take college courses. I missed about 6 or 7 semesters because they say that the college courses are full, or, they cater to only foster people first. And then there's only so many spaces and the college, the classes get closed up and all that. So for about 6 or 7, I've missed a solid 6 or 7 semesters of just trying to get in school and trying to go further. And when you do get in class, you have the bare minimum. There's no computers, there's no anything. I took English 1 and English 2. I had to handwrite all of my essays. And then when you send them in for editing and stuff and the teacher marks them up, it's not like I just go back into my computer and just make those little edits. I have to rewrite everything by hand and stuff again. So it's not easy. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation is definitely not making it any easier. You just have to, I guess, have a feeling of wanting it and trying to go after it. And just, my inspiration for going after it was wanting to stay out of prison once I came home. But that might not be the same inspiration for everybody else. Whatever inspires a person to pursue it, they have to hold on to that little bit of hope. And even at times, because the Department of Corrections, the criminal justice system is not going to make it easy for you to stay out of prison, because that's not how they make money. They make money by having bodies in the prison, and they're not trying to let go of those bodies, So, yeah, it's hard to take classes in prison. They're not making it any easier. And, yeah, I think that that's something that if I could change things and policy work and stuff like that, I think that's some important policies there that need to be implemented and put in place.
I have two questions. So, hearing that it is really difficult to even like take courses, I guess that one would think that if these courses are so packed, then that means that a lot of people who are incarcerated or who have been incarcerated have had some kind of education, right, while they've been in prison. Those who have been previously incarcerated that are at this school, did they also have a similar history of taking classes while they were incarcerated?
Um, I'm not sure. I've only met a couple of people that that I know for a fact were incarcerated, and system impacted the way I was. I do not recall hearing them say that they took college courses while they were in prison. I don't know how many have or had the luxury of taking those classes. Yeah, and I don't know how they fill up so fast. It because a lot of the people that were taking college courses with me, and I mean, eventually, like when you're taking college courses and your college exams are proctored and stuff like that, you start to meet other students. I met a lot of people who were like, "Did you get classes?" No, I didn't get classes either. And then it goes back and forth. Like, man, it's fucked up that here we are trying to pursue education or pursue higher education, but like it's been stifled or it's being limited. And at every turn, like I don't understand how a person who is already a continuing student can just automatically, when they reapply, be like, "Oh no, there's no class. You can't take anything." It's like, well, how am I ever supposed to, help myself or position myself better in life if everything is always closed or everything is all like, how can we limit this? Like, I don't know. It just, when we see about the miscarriages of justice and stuff like that, I mean, those things are kind of confusing to me. Yeah, it's kind of sad.
It really is. And I think like a lot, then coming here, right, to this campus, right, a lot of the resources are decentralized and sometimes it feels kind of impossible to get things, to get help, to get assistance, right? You come here and then classes are available, but housing may not be available or food might be an issue. And like advisors may not always have the answers that you're looking for too, and they'll send you elsewhere. So it's like throughout the whole educational process, there's different obstacles that like kind of make it really difficult for previously justice impacted people, first gen students, et cetera, to like be able to actually like reach the end of it, right? Like getting that certificate, that diploma. Did any of the classes that you took while you were incarcerated end up not counting for your transfer credits?
I think there were a couple classes that didn't count, but for the most part, a lot of the classes that I was able to take were transferable credits. Especially the classes that came from Hartnell. I think Hartnell only sent classes there that were transferable, whereas the course I was taking college courses from two places. So Coastline Community College was an online correspondence course thing where I had to mail stuff in. They were the most widely used one, but they were always full. Then Hartnell started individually sending professors in to Salinas Valley State Prison. And I think those classes helped me the most because every class that was sent in there was a class that was, transferable. So I think those helped me. Those classes did help me a lot, but they were only offering 2 courses a semester. And so, yeah, I mean, 2 courses a semester will take a long time for somebody to, achieve their AA.
Something that I am curious about, so in some of our previous meetings, like you had shared a little bit about like your youth. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm also adopted. I had no idea who my parents were. I was raised in a black house. I just recently learned that I'm black and Italian, but I was raised in a black, household where a lot of my family members were darker than me, had coarser hair than me, and stuff like that. And looking back on that, I always felt different because my skin was lighter, my hair was straighter, and everybody used to always, say, hey, you have good hair. Like, look at your hair. Your hair is good, and it kind of made me feel different. And, I reflect on that sometimes, and I think back to how, a lot of black people or blacks in general, they, do a lot to process hair, straighten hair, and people would always praise me about how good my hair was. But in all reality, I wanted the same nappy hair that they had, because, I felt like, why was I different? I where people were giving me the compliments, I felt like those were the things that made me stand out a little bit and made me different. So I think that contributed a little bit to, me feeling ostracized a little bit, and then wanting a sense of belonging, and I think that wanting the sense of belonging, later on finding out that I was adopted and all those things, I think those things played a part also in my draw and being, like a moth to the flame to the gang life. My mother was on drugs. My sister was doing drugs with her. There wasn't a lot of love in the household and stuff, and things were, we were trying to scrape things together. And then there's other kids in my neighborhood that are going through the exact similar things. And so those things allowed us to have like bonding, moments and stuff like that, allowed us to bond, find commonality in those things that, had caused us pain. And that's how we became, I think that was how I was initially drawn into and brought into a gang lifestyle.
Belonging is like something that is really important in anything that, like, any space that you're at. So I feel like it makes sense why gangs are so alluring, like the belonging, the comfort, the friends, like there must be some joy, right? That's why people are there. I know, so I'm Salvadorian, and we have this really famous gang called MS-13, and some of that history is like when people were migrating here because of the 11-year civil war, like they came to, like, LA is one example I use, but went there and discovered that there was a huge Mexican population, right? And with that came a lot of like targeting of Central Americans because they have pretty noticeable accents and like ways of being. And so these gangs, like other gangs, right, like the Crips, for example, like they began out of a need to protect each other, right, and things like that. So there are really like noble reasons for gangs to exist, right? It's just the shifting of things, the values of, things change. And I know at some point when in one of our past conversations, you had mentioned being like a young person and being the target of like police, right? For example, like even before you joined gangs, you were already being treated like you were part of them just for having large friends, or like a large group of friends, right?
Absolutely, yes. I really feel in my heart that the gang formed out of a label that was presented to us by other people. And I say that because, we used to walk to school. Like I said, we were a bunch of kids. We were living in low income housing. We all went to the same school. So it was nothing for us to like meet up, walk to school together, or walk back from school together, or, just hang out, period. In our neighborhood, that they have those broken window policies, and I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but broken window policing is that police believe or feel like they have to, if they allow a broken window in a neighborhood to go unchecked, then that will cause other people to break other windows in that neighborhood. And so, like, they police really hard in these areas, and have these like no nonsense policies or whatever. Just like they're cracking down on every single thing. And so, with us being kids, walking to and from school, throwing rocks, doing other things that, kids must, just being normal teenage kids or whatever, the police would treat us a little differently, meaning that, hey, what are you kids doing? They would write our names down on these papers that were called field identity cards, and they were little index cards that had basic information on it. But those field identity cards, what they kept on those field identity cards was who you were with when you were stopped, what area you were in, and all that stuff. So once they get enough field identity cards and they start building, they started to build their case like, okay, hey, this guy Donnie is always with Gabe, Fabe, and this, and when every time we see these guys, they're with each other. So then they start just labeling us as gang members, just automatically giving us that label, and it's like, well, yeah, that's the label that you put on us. So, yeah, we're gonna rock with that label. And so we started to become, and looking back on this, I have no idea, like, thinking about this now, like this is information and things that I've learned since coming to school and pursuing higher education. However, at the time when I was in it, I had no idea, that, when they were giving us those field identity cards and they were, saying, okay, you guys can leave now. I was looking at that as a slap as a wrist, like, they weren't even bothering. I never even knew that they were building and composing, a case or, ways to, label us as something that would even, because once you're labeled as a gang member, now, penalties become, multiplied. You get extra time from if you're a gang member and you're committing crimes and stuff like that. So, yeah, what was the original question? I feel like I'm getting away from it a little bit. What was it? But yeah, we just built on a label that was already presented to us by, society, and we just ran with that label until it started, gaining a name for itself, and then it was something that we claimed as our own, but not really understanding that, that was a label that was not even started by us.
Yeah, and how could you know that when they were talking with you? I mean, that there were any other institutional like steps. Like, there is no way for you all to know that. You would think that they would involve your parents or an adult, right, that can, or at least have you consent to these, these practices. Yeah. And what's wild to me, I think, like, when you shared that, it was so interesting. I guess I know that these things are deeply ingrained in, like, our system as, like, a whole nation and maybe even the whole world. But, like, this, even in Santa Ana, where I'm from in Orange County, well, not from Santa Ana, but from Orange County, that was like a really big part of the gang injunctions that are down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way they keep track of it. Like, they'll just, bunch of those cards, you're walking down the street and they always say, hey, we got reports of a crime. What's your name? And then, you give them your name and they write it down on that piece of paper. They're also writing down what street you're on and all that other stuff. And that's how they start to build those gang injunctions to where they can be like, oh, yeah, you're a part of this gang. You're a part of this gang. You were caught with, or you were stopped with this person. So we know you hang out with the gang. You don't even have to be a gang member officially. You know what I mean? You never can be put on a gang in your neighborhood at all. Just the fact that you were stopped in that neighborhood or whatever, and in society's eyes or in the criminal justice eyes, you're going to be labeled as that gang member, irregardless if you're a gang member or not. And it's just, once again, another label. You know what I mean? There's some more labels that we putting on people.
Oh yeah, and I think, okay, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like this master list that for the nation of like different gangs and gang members, and they found that even that there was like a newborn on this list of like people who are affiliated with gangs. So it was like wild to see that. It was like this child was just born and they're already on the list.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we kind of, talked a bit about your past, education stuff. I wanted to talk a bit about the present. Like, you're here now, you're at UCSC, you're on like the last few quarters.
Yeah, I graduate in June.
You graduate in June. That's so cool. That's so exciting. That's also a trip because you said you just started getting the hang of it right in this quarter, and I'm like, oh great. And
yeah,
like,
as soon as I get the hang of things, like, I'm out of here. It's like, geez, I just started getting used to it. Now you're kicking me out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did want to go. Okay, so these next two questions are I'm actually pretty excited for them. So the first one is, how has being connected with the underground scholars impacted your time here?
My time with the underground scholars has impacted me. It's had, a positive impact on me, just in the sense that it gives me an opportunity to, first of all, they like save me just from like going under and not knowing where anything is on campus. 23 years in prison, like, there's a lot of things that I really don't know how to do. And sometimes it could be embarrassing to ask for certain things because, certain people will be like, oh yeah, you don't know how to do this? All you have to do is, you remember how to do this, don't you? And it's simply just doing this and doing that. But for a person who's been in prison for 23 years and just coming back out into society with absolutely zero IT experience, it's hard to kind of ask people, even in class, like I was taking a computer class, and my professor was like, hey, well, everybody at this point should know how to do this. So all you got to do is that, and then you do this. But I had to go to the professor and tell him, like, I'm sorry, but, I'm system impacted. I don't know those simple things. I don't know this. So, Underground Scholars, in a sense, is giving me a space to where I don't have to be embarrassed, about not knowing certain things. And, they've really been instrumental in keeping me grounded, and having a feeling like I can accomplish this and not be overwhelmed. They've definitely provided me with that. That's something that I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's a very vulnerable experience to ask for help or to say, like, I don't know this, when you're in a class of people who seem to like know everything.
And not only that as well, like, in prison, you don't really ask for help much. Like, in order for this, the more you stay away from people and not ask for things from people, then the better you are. Because the minute that you start asking for things from somebody, then that opens that door up for that person to start asking for things from you. You know what I mean? So asking for help has not been a strong suit of mine, only because of the programming that I've been in, the conditioning that I've been exposed to in prison. So it's not easy for me to ask for help, even now, even still. Yeah. It's very difficult.
Yes, I do remember you sharing a bit about like the shift from like being incarcerated and having to, have certain protections, and then coming here, and then in some ways like the school demands or wants, not the school itself, but like the spaces we're part of, like there's a level of softness, of vulnerability that you need to be able to reach into that you had to unlearn before. So it's like this constant learning and unlearning.
Yeah, it's crazy because, when you try to apply freedom logic to somebody that's incarcerated, the rules that apply when you're free do not apply in prison. So your niceness, your politeness, your courtesy, all of those things are things that'll be weaponized against you when you're in prison, because all of those things represent, yourself being vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, then people try to take advantage of that vulnerability, because you got to think about it. You're in prison where, I'm not saying that everybody deserves to be in prison. We all know that the system is kind of like, shady, and things happen. But there are also some people that, let's face it, like, they did something, and I'm not going to say that anybody belongs in prison, because like prison is just so, but yeah, there is some wild individuals in prison, and you really have to protect yourself. You have to protect yourself by not allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You have to protect yourself with the words that you use, the way that you carry yourself. Like, all of those things are very important and key to your survival. And so once I left the streets and went to prison and learned, the best way to survive in prison, then here I am getting released again, 23 years later. And now, where I immediately rolled in Cabrillo, and we weren't even on this COVID thing. So Cabrillo was fully wide open. And so, like, being in crowds of people, when you're in prison and you're in a crowd, it's panic mode. Like, you're looking at hands, you're looking at tattoo, you're looking at people's, posturing, their position. Like, you have to like analyze all of these things at once. And so being 23 years on the level 4 yard, some of those things have been hardwired. Like, I've made hardwired connection to some of these things. And now, coming home, going to college, seeing these people, having to remind myself, like, yo, you're safe, like, you're good. Like, whereas in prison, everybody is a potential threat and in danger. Out here, it's like, how do I have to condition myself and teach myself and learn myself how not to tattoo check, or, when you're walking behind me, not to like give you that evil eye when you like in my or looking at people's hands just to see if there's anything, or if their fists are balled up, or if there's anything like, like, those things I have to work on some of those things, and even my analysis of situations. I think those are things that I still find myself working to improve my analyzing things from a free person's perspective instead of analyzing things from incarcerated perspective. It's a learning process, and 23 years in prison, I'm not going to change overnight.
That high alertness, it really ingrains itself into your nervous system. So
Absolutely.
you've been out of prison for a good amount of years now, right?
Well, I got out of prison October 11th, 2019.
2019.
So a little over 3 years.
Wow. And that was right before the pandemic too.
Right before the pandemic. So I got out in October. I enrolled in junior college in January. We went on lockdown in March. And so I had to learn how to take statistics online, learn IT. I'm 23 years behind the eight ball in the IT department. And so just trying to turn a JPEG into a PDF or whatever, just simple things were the most frustrating, the most confusing, some of the hardest stuff it is to do. And it would be even more frustrating because I have a couple nephews. I'd ask for their help and they'll come right over there, and 5 minutes later, they'll fix something that I've been, working on for an hour and a half. I think IT is probably the most frustrating thing that I experienced since I've been home. It drives me absolutely nuts.
I think that's the only time your brow really furrowed when talking about IT.
Yeah, that stuff is. I also have a scar here. I mean, it looks like I have this permanent frown line.
Yeah.
But I got in a fight in prison. I had my face split open. So, got in a fight with a guy who stole my cell phone. And so, I didn't want to fight him. But if I didn't do that, then everybody would think that they can just come by and start taking stuff from me. So wound up getting in a fight with him. Didn't win it, but it's not you in prison, you don't have to win. You know what I mean? But you have to fight. So that's something that you have to do. And because of that, I did suffer kind of a split face right between my eyes. It starts at not at the bridge of my nose, but right at the top of my nose, and it goes up towards my forehead. The scar also goes down into my right eye a little bit, and I had to go see a specialist to get some stitches put in there and stuff like that. But I mean, we're still here. We're here.
Since you've been here, though, you went from one institution that was definitely very different from this one in a lot of ways, but there's also some similarities, right, from that institution of prison and the institution of education. Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
It's so funny how those institutions, the criminal justice institution and our education institutions, are similar. They have a lot of similarities. When I look at some of the building designs here on campus and stuff like that, they do remind me of buildings in prison. The campus works as a schedule. You have times. I mean, even our education system, period, you got bells and times and, things you're supposed to be doing this and doing that. And, the institutions are set up the same way. Bells and times when you're going to eat, or, whatever, you have to do this or you have to do that. There's a lot of similarities that occur between our criminal justice institutions and our educational, institutions. They do share a lot of similarities.
They do, and they also share. So there's the look of it, but then also they share sometimes they share the same food business, the food companies, right?
Yeah.
So from elementary school to even college, a lot of the same people that serve food in prisons also run the dining halls. I don't know about here, okay? I don't know about here, but I know for sure elementary schools got the same cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
You've been part and working with the underground scholars since you got here, right? So you've really been able to see the ins, the outs, and how they've been able to move on this campus. So how has the university supported the underground scholars, and where could they improve?
I mean, the university has not tried to stifle the underground scholars, and they've been pretty supportive as far as on paper and all that goes. Where can they show some improvement? For the underground scholars, I think the success of underground scholars students, I think it depends a lot on housing. If it wasn't for housing for myself, for secure housing for myself, I don't know if I would have been able to make it through junior college. And I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have made it, this far at the UC. They do have a thing where they pay for, housing on this at the summer, for the summer for underground scholar students. I'm not sure if that's still applicable. I would have to take a look, but I'm pretty sure that it still is. It is. But I mean, I think, housing is an important thing for people who are coming out of prison with, their job situation is looking grim. People don't like to hire felons, like that. And so, people tend to turn back to the ways that they know to make money when they're in a situation to where their back is up against the wall. So I think by providing some certain things like, maybe some housing or things like that, I think that would definitely make transition for people that are incarcerated and coming into the UC, I think that would make that transition a lot easier. So I think they can improve on that a little bit. Probably have to think about some other things too that they can improve on. I don't want to just say limited to that, but for now we'll stick with housing with me reserving the right to go back and say, yeah, they need to improve this and you need to improve that. So yeah.
And housing is like a whole thing, like across the board. Did not realize that Santa Cruz had such a crisis here. So that's been interesting to like witness, experience, and worry about, because,
Not to mention commencement too. I mean, commencement is canceled now, so.
Yes, I did hear about that.
Yeah, so that's, they can improve on that. UCSC, please. I've never walked across it. And I think about this, it's so frustrating for me, and I don't mean to go on a tangent real quick.
No, go ahead.
But it's so crazy that, at 50 years old, I'm a reentry student, worked hard to get here, never walked across this stage a day in my life. Even when I graduated from Cabrillo, it was during COVID, and it was the whole send your picture, we'll flash it across the video screen, and you're done. So I was really looking forward to walking across the stage here at UCSC. And so this like that whole experience, the whole symbolism, the crowds, I want to be a part of that. I have 5 roommates whose, things I want to go to. Like, I feel like, I don't know. That's something that is really, really frustrating to me, that you would take something that means so much, that I've worked so hard for. Like, you want to take the traditionalness of it out of it and simplify it as a little 10-minute or whatever little window and 6 people for a photo op. I mean, I think it's not fair and it's really upsetting.
It is. It's really like, it's just really like, I'm going to say heartbreaking a little, because like a lot of those of us who, like worked really hard. I mean, everyone worked really hard to get here, but
Absolutely.
There's also others like, first generation students who never thought they would get here, that they would get to walk across that stage, that don't get to have, that symbolic like completion of all of that work, and being able to like have your family members come and celebrate with you. Like that is a very special moment, and
Right.
It is unfair.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't mean to send us on that tangent. But yeah, if they can improve anything for us, yes. Can we have our graduations back, please? Thank you.
Yes.
The SUA they already filed their resolution they're bringing it up on, right now. I have some people that I work with in STARS that are in the SUA that are like, they on it.
It's so cool. All of the different networks of people in different places trying to, get the same thing. It just sometimes that's when the decentralized campus really sucks, because it's like.
And it works to our disadvantage because we don't have an opportunity to come together. And, together we're much stronger than we are if we're, spread out. So, it would be helpful if our network was a little bit more unified, so that we can take actions a lot quicker and have a lot more impact.
Okay, that was a beautiful way to like segue into the future part. So I'm going to ask you about that. So you have been here some time, you're involved in many different spaces and graduating soon. You kind of shared how you're feeling already, but I just wanted to ask generally, like, how are you feeling now as you're coming to like the end of your time here?
I'm kind of sad because, I've become fond of the campus, fond of, some of the people and just the vibe. Like, I've only been home 3 years. I've been coming to school here now a little over a year. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely grown on me, a lot. It's very therapeutic for me. After the hustle and bustle of being in prison, barbed wire, concrete and all those things. This is something that I didn't know that I needed UCSC until I got here, because I've been humbled, I've been amazed, and I've just been able to kind of like exhale a little bit. So Santa Cruz has definitely given me that feeling.
Thank you for sharing that. The rest, that comes with this, like, I think you had mentioned that you came here because of the piece that you were like, oh, like, the nature here. It was such a huge like environmental shift for you. It's like, yeah. Do you spend time in nature, like in the? Because I'm assuming you do.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I walk when I get a chance and all that stuff, and I definitely visit the beach. I always like to show the place off to other people that, what I'm saying, that I invite, like kids or friends or whatever. Like, you got to come out here. You got to come out here because, I like to live through their eyes as well. When they walk through the trails and stuff and see those redwood trees that you can't even see the tops of and stuff. And a lot of people are amazed by that. And I find new appreciation every time I'm able to share it with somebody and they are, appreciative of it as well. You know what I mean? Like I gain a whole new appreciation for it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's taken me some time to like, I know we're going off topic, but I just wanted to talk about the trees because also like I felt a lot of resistance to the nature. I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. I don't know how to like engage. I didn't grow up with nature. And I saw a mushroom, like turkey tail the other day on a log. And I was just like, oh my God, I've never seen this before, just in movies. So it was really cool. Yeah. It's just, there's a lot of like, I guess, yeah, like UCSC isn't always the most healing space to be in. But when you step outside of the buildings and just go into the trees, like it definitely offers like healing in different ways that
absolutely
you can't really get in the city.
Well, yeah, it is a PWI, so we, you know what I mean. But when I'm able to step out of it, when I'm able to step away from it, and just like you said, just kind of like, even when I was walking to Stevenson, when you're walking towards Stevenson and you can look over Eastfield and you can see that ocean view. Like even like there's some days where I just got to stop and just like look at it, just appreciate it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to be here forever. You know what I mean? Eventually, this place is going to be gone. You know what I mean? And I'm just going to have the memory. So, yeah, every once in a while I will stop and pause and just, like absorb it. You know what I'm saying? Like take it in and just go out about my day.
Yeah. Taking it in, being like, whoa, I'm here. That's wild.
Absolutely.
That ocean's so big too. You can't even see all the way to the end. Okay, so thinking about that and thinking about like, I'm not going to be here forever. So you're definitely taking time to just like appreciate the place, the space, the views. What excites you about the future, the after UCSC?
What excites me about the future is that, since I've been home, things have been kind of like falling in place for me just as long as I've been staying on the path of just putting the one foot in front of the other and doing the right thing. Again, I got out October. I enrolled in school in January. I eventually bought a car for $10. It's been the most dependable car I've ever had.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? Like I got my license. I got my, passport. I've flown out of the country. I met my biological mother for the first time in 50 years. Like, there's a lot in the 3 years. I've done a lot. I've done more than 3 years than some people have done in their life. And so I'm excited about what the future may bring. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to happen, but things have been working themselves out, in my favor, or working themselves out for me. And, I'm really just excited to see what this next step or this next journey is going to be like. I really look forward to that.
I'm excited to see you in the future. Okay, wonderful. I really appreciate you coming here and talking with me and like sharing so much of like your personal story, how you've navigated the school. We are coming to a close now, but before we officially like close out, I wanted to ask, if there are any additional resources or parting words that you want to leave our listeners with.
Yeah. One thing that I've always done is I've looked back at my life. Like, here I am, 50 years old, going to college. I look around and I see a lot of students that are young and so early in life. And it makes me proud to see people that are going after it so young. And it's important that I mention that because on the grand scheme of things, in our life's timeline, school only plays such a short part of that timeline. Getting things out the way earlier allows you to refocus and allow you to enjoy your leisure time later on, where you don't have to worry about, putting yourself together, putting your life together, and putting those things together. So I really am hopeful and appreciative of seeing people getting after it and getting it done, at a young age. Come see me at the Stars Lounge, or whatever, say hello. I don't shy away from talking about, my experience, my life, my, pre-incarceration, post-incarceration, while incarcerated. Like, I really have no problem discussing those things. The more I discuss those things, the more I heal as well. So, if you ever see me or, you're ever in a situation where, you may need some advice, just some life advice or whatever, feel free to look me up. Also, if there's some other questions that are inspired from listening to our interview here, maybe send some more questions. Maybe, we can follow up with something, if people want to follow up on something or whatever. But I really am here to be a tool to be used. I think we're all here to be used, but not misused. So if I can be used as a tool to help somebody else's life or to improve life for others, and I'm all here for it.
Yes, and we will definitely be putting your contact information in the notes. So
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time. And this is Solidari-Tea with Mango, which is me, and Donnie Veal from the Underground Scholars.